People once lived in the East, and because they were Christians, their life was hard. They were told, "Leave your God, come to love Allah and you will live better." But they kept their faith and continued to live in the name of Christ. These are the people that proudly call themselves Assyrians today. They honor their culture and traditions, music, singing, dancing, festivals, society. They say the word Assyrian with a special pride. The majority of these Assyrians came to Russia at the time of the First World War. They fled the blood purges that the Turks and Kurds had started. These Assyrians left their homeland, often whole villages departing at once. Many of them settled in the Caucasus. Others went further north. They remained there, although the life was very difficult. They had come at a bad time. World War I, revolution, the Civil War, famine, devastation, and a new communist regime that had no mercy. Though Assyrian refugees could only rely on themselves, they got used to the hardships. If they could live for centuries surrounded by people of other religious beliefs, then here in Russia, among brothers in faith, they could be naturalized, even without knowing the Russian language or way of life. Assyrians brought with them traditions and holidays that helped them stay together until the present day, preserving their identity within the Russian society. Our family moved to Russia with the retreating Russian army, and sometime around the end of 1919s, the beginning of the 1920s, our grandparents moved to Moscow. It wasn't ours. We didn't have our own church. Nevertheless, we have been celebrating Assyrian holidays parallel with Russian ones ever since. All the troubles that the Russian people went through, the Assyrians had to go through as well. There was Stalin's repression, when, for instance, one big clan which had 40 men in it was left without a single one. Our great-grandfathers were persecuted and sent to Siberia. My grandfather had been sent back to Iran. Our uncle had been charged and was sent to slave labor in the north. In just 1 year, there were only women left in the families. The repressions passed, and then all the remaining men went to fight in the Second World War. Many died, but some of our greatest fighters are our pride, combat generals, and some received the highest honors of the Soviet Union, the Medal of the Hero of the Soviet Union. But our holidays, Assyrian holidays, were celebrated still every year. October 1st and 2nd remained festival time for our people, despite social distress and war. There was a building on number 3, the 3rd Samatyok Street, on the outskirts of Moscow, where Count Vinogradov's house was located. Everybody knew this place in Moscow, because the Assyrians always got together over there. My grandmother laid out a barrel of red cabbage on the festival days, and anyone could come and grab some food. The doors were always open. At the Durana, we usually had 30 to 40 sheep to prepare. The trams were stopped, and people came out to watch. They didn't quite understand what we were doing, butchering sheep in the center of Moscow, and listening to strange music. Usually there was a drum and zurna playing. That was very surprising to the Russians, but in a while the whole city knew the place. We sometimes celebrated for a couple nights in a row. I think it will have an important role in uniting the Assyrian people, so that our kids can grow up understanding the traditions of our nation, knowing the language and the history of our people. And most importantly, knowing the religion that saved us from extinction when we lived surrounded by the Muslim nations. Only Christianity saved our people from assimilation. Importantly, our future. The building of the first Assyrian church in Russia will be a blissful moment for all Assyrians. Soon anybody and everybody will be able to return to the fold of their original church. It is already clear that the church will consolidate the faith of Assyrians in Moscow and Russians in the name of a God that is universal for all Assyrians, in the name of Christ. The Bible was originally written in the Aramaic language, and that Father Abraham originally is from Ur, one of the centers of the Assyrian Babylonian civilization. It has been calculated that Assyrians are referred to in the Bible around 150 times, and that such renowned figures as the prophets Daniel and Isaiah lived on the territory of the Assyrian Empire. It was said that Edessa was not just famous for its cathedrals and hermits, but also for being the first state that officially was converted to the Christian faith. Already in the first years following the crucifixion.
Ученики Христа, Мараддай и Мартума, принесли христианство уже в первые же годы после.
There is a hypothesis that these saints cured King Abgar, who together with the whole nation converted to the Christian faith. Evidence shows that this happened in the 45th year after the death of Christ, 300 years before Rome became Christian itself. In addition to that, Assyrian priests and monks were worldly renowned missionaries. Through their fearlessness and determination, these immortal men spread Christianity from Spain to the Japanese islands. Many of them died in the process. As one of the Assyrian church hierarchy wrote, these missionaries were unpretentious saints, kind-hearted, and as brave as lions. They carried the light of Christianity, sacrificing their lives. Here we should mention that the ethnic confessional segregation of Assyrians started from the Kolchidon Synod in the 5th century AD. The influence of Parthia and Byzantium produced the division of the Church of the East into various sects. These sects included the Monophysites, the so-called Nestorians, the Orthodox, and many others. Due to this, nowadays, the Assyrians are referred to as Chaldeans, Assyro-Chaldeans, Jacobites, Nestorians, Maronites, and many others.
как марониты и так далее.